If you want Colts talk all year long, you're in the right place.
Fires upfield into the end zone. It is caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown. He's going to fire upfield. It's broken up. Tipped and intercepted by the Colts.
This is the official Colts Podcast, giving you an updated look at what's new with the Horseshoes.
Colts have it. Interception. 2 seconds left, and the Colts are going to win.
In the Indiana Union Construction Industry radio studio, let's get the podcast started.
Hey, what's up? Hi again, everybody. Welcome to the official Colts Podcast. Back again on a Tuesday. Hope your summer's going well. It's been a week down in Florida. Larra Overton is here. I'm Matt Taylor. JJ Stankevitz as well. JJE was hot down in Florida. Coming back to Indianapolis seems like a reprieve from the heat down in Clearwater Beach, Florida.
So, with the heat coming up here, I know it's not my random thought of the week, but we were in Myrtle Beach. You just went down to Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Over the weekend, I took my boys to the Indianapolis Indians game.
And Kings Island, right?
And Kings Island.
Yeah.
Staple.
These kids, like, you know how Dippin' Dots is the ice cream of the future? They've branded themselves as that for 20 years?
I was going to say 30 years ago it was the ice cream of the future.
I'm pretty sure
yes.
because of my kids, Dippin' Dots will actually be the ice cream of the future because that's all they eat.
Sustained ice cream.
Dippin' Dots are great when it's super hot out because you get soft serve and you're a kid.
Oh.
It melts
It's
within
soup.
about 3
Yes.
seconds. You get ice cream
It's
soup.
on your leg.
Right. Dippin' Dots, they're confined in a cup.
Yeah.
You can eat them with a spoon, and they stay cold, and they don't become soupy until you get right down to the bottom. I am a pro Dippin' Dots guy now.
Nice.
I would have to agree with that. Cotton candy flavor. My 6-year-old loves the cotton candy
I
flavor.
didn't even know there was a cotton candy flavor.
There's
The
Dippin' Dots, yeah.
Cookie dough
They have 'em at the
ones
zoo.
were a big hit. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I
Absolutely.
mean, zoo, sporting events,
Mm-hmm.
fairs, anywhere that you could sell ice cream.
Next to the Kona Ice. 'Cause
Right.
That's where Kona Ice is.
Yep.
All of those instances as well.
See, to me, no ice cream will ever taste as good as the ice cream that came in the mini helmet at a baseball game that in Louisville, when I would go to the Louisville Redbirds games, we would eat them with the wooden spoon that
Yeah.
came with it, so that's no ice cream has tasted better than when I was about 4 years old.
You guys remember the malts? Remember
Oh, yeah.
chocolate malts?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I wasn't a big fan.
Growing up, I would get
You
those.
said wooden spoon. That's
Yep,
where I went.
That's where I went. I would get those at Wrigley Field, and they would come in.
Yeah.
The vendor would come down, and I swear he had probably like dry ice in that thing because you would buy it, and it would be 95 degrees out, but you'd have to wait an inning to even get the spoon into it.
That's like
'cause it would be so
anytime you've
cold.
gotten one of those, like the lemon, the
Italian ice.
Lemon chill. Yeah.
Lemon
Lemon
chill.
chill,
Yeah.
Hey, speaking of hot weather in the summertime, guys, I'm sure you saw it on social media. Thinking about all those folks on the south side of town, right? Those people down in northern Johnson County, the Greenwood area. That's down by my neck of the woods. I'm sure you guys saw the social media videos of the tornado that went. That was about 3 miles from my house.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and this is the second time in 3 months. We had one back in March, and that hit
that's
down
right,
in
yeah.
Whiteland. This was a little bit north of that. So you're talking about, 2 big-time tornadoes in 3 month spans, really affecting those communities. South side of Indianapolis, northern Johnson County, Greenwood, Whiteland. Just, those devastating pictures and videos circulating around. That community's been hit really, really hard here lately. So we just want to say we're thinking about you big time. And summer in Indianapolis, man, it's a scary time. Things are fluctuating. You got lightning. You've got winds.
Got wildfire smoke back.
Yeah. You just got to be weather aware around here during the summer at all times. To those people down in the south side, we're thinking about you. And I know we got a lot of people that listen to the podcast down in that area. So thank you for doing so, and we got your back here. All right, coming up on today's podcast, we're talking about big-time training camp storylines outside of the quarterback. We know about Anthony Richardson, right? We know about Gardner Minshew, but we'll discuss the Colts secondary, what's going on at cornerback. We'll talk about some position switches. And also the camp schedule there is coming out tonight, right?
It is.
Later on today.
It is. It will be announced this evening. There's going to be a little gathering at Grand Park to unveil this year's training camp schedule. So some great things to look out for. Of course, a big part of that, those joint practices, too, with the Chicago Bears. That's always kind of a highlight of camp. You'll have some night practices and all of those things, which provide some great opportunities to get up there. And as always, of course, free to the fans.
Yeah, so that's coming out tonight. The training camp schedule will be unveiled later on this evening. check that out, Colts.com/camp here in just a little bit, or depending on when you're listening to this, that may be out already. We're also going to throw out some Colts predictions and play a little game on a segment called Do You See It? Put on your eyeglasses on some predictions for 2023. But as we said, non-quarterback storylines. Let's talk about that cornerback spot, because outside of Kenny Moore, the Colts do not have a lot of proven depth at that position going into training camp. That's because, as we all know, we've talked about this all off season long. Stephon Gilmore traded, Brandon Facyson returned to the Raiders earlier this offseason in free agency. And so as of now, if you do the math, the Colts are returning 947 cornerback snaps from last season. 773 of those are coming from Kenny Moore II. So that's about 81% coming from just one guy. And the Colts have 4 rookies in their cornerback depth right now. They may be in a position where they're going to have to rely on those guys either heavily on defense, certainly on special teams as well. But, JJ, you've got Juju Brents, Darius Rush drafted in the 5th round, Jalen Jones out of Texas A&M picked up at the cornerback spot in the 7th round. Are you worried about the lack of experience on paper at corner in the secondary going into camp here?
I think it's one of those things where the competition for this, and I talked about this on the podcast last week, and Casey brought up a really good point, that the competition at cornerback is probably going to extend into the season. And, you would love that your week 1 starters are going to be your week 18 starters, but more than likely because of the youth there, you might see some turnover during the season of, all right, maybe you start the year, say, with Darius Rush and Dallas Flowers as your starting outside guys. But then Juju Brents comes along. Or, Darrell Baker, a kid who, he was on, I think he was a practice squad guy last year. Maybe he comes along.
Right.
There are options there. The one thing that I go back to is Gus Bradley has always said that his defense is designed for young players to play fast in it and to pick it up quickly. We saw that last year with Rodney Thomas in the back end, where he picked it up real quick. He got in there as a 7th-round pick, and he was a very effective safety in this defense. I think there could be some opportunity for these young guys where you take 4 or 5 young guys, and if you get 2 of them to play fast, play with the kind of discipline they need, make a couple plays on the ball, I think you're going to be okay. The key to me here maybe is less about the play of the corners, and it's about the pass rush, Larra. If the Colts can get a consistently effective pass rush, that's going to help the cornerbacks out. And just one other thing I go back to on this is I had a conversation with Ron Milas last year. And I asked him, there's this debate about, what's more important to have, coverage on the back end or an effective pass rush. And he goes, look, I'm a defensive backs coach. My cornerback could fall down, and it wouldn't matter if the quarterback's on the ground.
Yeah.
I think if the D-line is able to get pressure, the worry about young cornerbacks will diminish for this team.
I was actually listening to we were going back through a lot of the training camp content from last year, and over and over, you heard Gus Bradley say rush and cover works together, rush and cover. It was what he was harping on over and over. And I do think it's an area of concern, and I think that's why you saw the Colts spend some pretty significant draft capital and then, some of the undrafted roster space as well on that position group, because you knew the departures that you had, you knew the voids that you were going to have within that defense, and that's why you have guys like Darius Rush and Juju Brents and then Jalen Jones who were added to this roster via the draft. And right. I think that it's the other thing that is a concern about that is Jalen Jones, I believe, was the most available of those guys in the spring into summer. We didn't see Juju Brents at all, which you didn't expect to because he had the wrist procedure, wrist, right?
Wrist, yeah.
Wrist. And then Darius Rush looked great early on, and then he was a bit sidelined on the back half of that activity. So that's another big question mark looming, is that it's not like those guys had significant time. Not that you can really establish yourself necessarily as a starter, in late May, early June when you're looking into training camp, but I do think you'd feel a little bit comfortable if you'd gotten to see more tape or any tape on some of these guys, especially a guy like Juju Brents. I think it's going to be incredibly competitive, and I do think that you are going to lean on a veteran guy like Tony Brown has a significant opportunity, in this situation to come into camp and be able to be one of those who has the most experience and be able to showcase that and then help bring those guys along. But I do think that, JJ, to your point, that group of starters is probably going to look pretty different from week 1 to week 8 to, week 18.
The one guy who's upside, I'm sort of I don't want it to get lost in here, is Dallas Flowers. I mean, he didn't play a whole lot last year until Brandon Faison was in and out, Kenny Moore was in and out toward the end of the season. But he's fast, he's tall, and he's long. What are 3 things that Gus Bradley looks for in his quarterbacks? Fast, tall, long. So baseline, the athleticism, the body type that Dallas Flowers has fits the way that Gus Bradley wants his cornerbacks to play. He still has to, improve his technique and what he does with his assignments, but he's got upside. He's a guy who should not get lost in this. I wouldn't be totally shocked if Dallas Flowers, out of that group that we've talked about, if he starts the most games this year at cornerback.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought him up because, like you said, he is going into year number 2. You can't forget about him. He did play the last 4 games of the season at cornerback because of necessity. Like you said, Faison was in and out of the lineup. That's when Kenny Moore II was banged up. So he actually started the last game of the season, Week 18, against the Texans, and he played well. And I talked with him at the close of the offseason workout program about a week or so ago and talked about his comfort level in the offense this year compared to last year in the offseason as a rookie.
Yeah, last year was kind of hectic, chaotic. Coming from training for Pro Day, it was like a year-round thing, and then I came in undrafted, so I was behind the 8-ball from the jump. But that's pretty much been my story since I was young. So last year was crazy. Coming to this year, year 2, under the same scheme as again, same coaches, majority of the same players came back. So I definitely feel more comfortable and more at ease with the coaching and the playbook and stuff like that. I definitely feel more familiar and comfortable.
Can you describe your rookie season? I mean, I know a lot happened around you off the field, but on the field, how would you describe your first season with the Colts, both on special teams and with the defense?
With the hand I was dealt with, I think I played pretty well. Definitely could have played better. You know what I'm saying? So I think I had a decent rookie year. I'm just trying to capitalize and maintain and do better for year 2. So.
You still have that chip on your shoulder as an undrafted guy?
I definitely had that chip on my shoulder. Like knowing me, I want to be the best. I want to keep working hard. So to me, last year out the window, so I still feel like a lot of people don't know me. So I got to do what I do. I do my best. I work hard. Win with my brothers. We all work together. We're going to be good, everybody.
Where is the game on defense specifically sort of slowed down for you?
Corner spot, really just knowing, like, down in distances, like 2nd and 8, knowing how to play a receiver, or like 3rd and 5, knowing when to jump stuff, just scenario stuff like that. So I'm learning that and getting better at that. That's going to make the game totally easier. I don't got to overwork myself on simple stuff if I know his tendencies and stuff like that. So just becoming more a student of the game.
With the offseason program pretty much in the books as we sit here and talk right now, what was most beneficial for you about this second spring with the Colts?
Like I said, this is my 2nd year in the defensive scheme and learning from Kenny Moore, he is the smartest player I ever played with. Just him giving me little tidbits on small things like I just said. So, and just seeing the defense in the game slower, that makes a ton of a difference right then and there. So I think I definitely took a huge jump, a huge leap on just with the defense and just seeing the game slower.
What do you make of this defense? There's Pro Bowl players, there's Pro Bowl caliber players in all 3 levels of this defense.
I think our defense is going to be well. Our defense was good last year. I think this year our defense is going to be even better. We're young, but we're talented and we're fast and we're athletic. So I think this year we're definitely going to be a great defense this year.
What do you make of Anthony Richardson from your standpoint on the defense?
He's a beast, big, fast, athletic, strong, young, but still like open to listen from others and keep growing with his game. I think he's going to have a great career and a great season this year.
I know it's apples to oranges considering he's an offensive guy, you play defense, but your rookie season's just barely in the rearview mirror. From that standpoint, how can you help him kind of ease into the NFL?
I can just tell him just take every day by day, try to get better every day and just listen from others and take criticism and just learn to be better and just learn from Minshew. He's a vet. Just learn from him, take him under his arm, just learn from him and just get better.
All right, for you, what do you want to accomplish in the summertime, before camp, before your report?
Just keep doing what I've been doing, staying in the playbook, just getting better day by day. Keep learning the defense, like more and more, even little stuff. Like I got the defense down, but just like the little small stuff. And stay healthy.
You still think about those long kickoff returns?
Yeah, it's gonna be some more this year for touchdowns for sure.
All right, thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Dallas Flowers right there. Yeah, he had that huge kickoff return almost for a touchdown against the Steelers last year. He also led the NFL in yards per kickoff return at 31.1, finished fourth in kick return yards in the NFL last year with 715 of them on just 23 attempts. And you heard it right there, feeling a lot more comfortable in year number 2, understanding the situational side of the game, right? How to play receivers on second and short versus third and long, how to play inside the red zone, knowing when to jump routes, knowing when to take chances, learning how to watch film, understanding the tendencies of receivers. And I think that all kind of starts to slow down for players in year number 2, especially for a guy at the cornerback position that could potentially be asked. There's going to be asked a lot more of him this upcoming season. And, JJ, you talked about it towards the end of last year when he was out there on defense. It's not like offenses were going right at him.
Yeah.
It's not like he was being exploited. To your point, when you speak of Gus Bradley's defense being it's able to be picked up quickly by rookies and first-year players. You saw that last year late in the season out of Dallas Flowers.
Yeah, I mean, I remember having a conversation with Dallas about that last season where I was like, you got out there, and I think in his first game that he started, he wasn't targeted at all. And usually when you have a undrafted rookie cornerback, teams are just going to be like, get after this guy. Like, make him beat us. Or, let's try to make him prove it.
Right.
And he didn't throw at him at all. He didn't get targeted.
Throw at him at all.
Yeah.
It's just hilarious the way it came off.
It was the Vikings game is what it was.
Yeah.
He played 19 coverage snaps in that game, and they didn't target him once in that game. And he had some against Justin Jefferson where you'd think the ball's going to him, especially when the Vikings are playing catch-up the whole game.
Right.
And Kirk Cousins didn't get there. And, it doesn't mean 19 snaps or he didn't get targeted in one game doesn't mean this guy's going to be an all-pro or anything, but I think it shows he's got some ability in him. And, if Ron Miles and Mike Mitchell and Gus Bradley can coach it out of him and he can take the necessary steps in his own development, I think he's got a lot of upside.
All right, let's stay in the secondary as I teased at the start. We're going to talk about position switches. That's Julian Blackmon, Larry. He's going into a contract year, but he's making the switch in the last year of his rookie contract from free safety to strong safety, right? We know about Rodney McLeod. He's no longer here. And with the emergence of Rodney Thomas at free safety, that allows Julian Blackmon's versatility and his athleticism to be used somewhere else and to also fill a need for the Colts, and that's at strong safety. Nick Cross is currently the third man, competing for one of those starting jobs, but Blackmon's looking to kind of prove himself in a contract year. But you've got Cross, you've got some other guys in the mix that are in the younger
Trevor
mold.
Denbow
Trevor
had a
Denbow,
huge play
undrafted free agent
in
last year.
minicamp, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like we saw him with some flashes. He was hurt for part of the early period last year, and didn't get to see as much of him as they would have liked to. But
Right.
it was a guy who stuck around and was on the practice squad and different things. But he definitely stepped up during minicamp.
He originally made the 53-man roster, but point is, Blackmon is trying to prove that he should be a Colt next year with all of these young guys on rookie contracts. Do you think Blackmon is better suited at strong safety than free safety from what you've seen so far?
I think so far it looks like it's a good fit. I'm not going to say it's better or worse, but I think what you have to go back to
he can't
is
play.
It's just remembering the fact that it's a guy who previously played corner before transitioning to safety. Like, this guy can do anything on the back end. The reason the Colts drafted him, even when he was coming out of his collegiate career with the knee and the torn ACL and everything that he was going to have to come back from, was because he had this just incredible athleticism, and he did have that versatility that he showcased collegiately at Utah while he was there. So I think that Julian Blackmon is one because of not only his skill set, but also because of the mentality that he brings. He does have that ability to be able to be versatile within that area, whether it's at free or strong safety. I do. I think it's a fantastic fit. I think most of all, I'm not going to say that this is forever the spot that he will play for the entirety of his career. I think in this system, with the duo that you have, the tandem of he and Rodney Thomas, I think those guys do complement each other very well. And your best chance at winning football is to have those two on the field as often as possible. So I think that's why I think this move works and will work, is because of those various factors.
The other thing here that I think Julian gets is it's a contract year. And if Julian Blackmon can go into next offseason, whether it's the Colts his agent's talking to or other teams if he hits unrestricted free agency, and say, Julian can play free safety, he can play strong safety, he can play nickel, whatever you need him to do, he can do it, and he can do it well. And
there's always a need for a guy like that on your football team.
Absolutely. And I think Julian gets that, hey, if I go out and have a good season at strong safety, there are going to be a lot of teams that are going to be interested in me. Because when you think about free agency, I think we always look at it of like, guy gets free agency and, he's a good player, there are going to be 20 teams interested in him. But in reality, it's usually a lot more specific. It's usually there are only 3 or 4 teams that are really interested you max in free agency. But if you go into it and a team says, we need a nickel, we like what Julian did last year at nickel, or we need a free safety, we like his tape when he was playing free safety with the Colts, or we need a strong safety, or we need a safety who can be interchangeable and do both. That's really valuable, especially in a lot of the too high Vic Fangio defenses that are out there. That could open up Julian Blackmon to have 5, 6, 7 teams interested in him, including the Colts, and that will help him make more money.
Wherever you put Julian, he's just got to stay healthy this year.
Yep.
Like that's the biggest thing right now. And last year he was incredibly, available for the most part, but obviously, kind of had that later coming along in terms of his freshman season, his rookie season. I just glanced up at they got the Manning Passing Academy on NFL Network, and then I was flashing back to like the college of quarterbacks out there. But his rookie season, and then of course tore his Achilles and all of those things. So the biggest thing for him is certainly going to be not only proving a command of that position, but also purely just being available and on the field. For
sure. Yeah, I mean, I think Blackmon, to your point, JJ, he's just a guy you have to have on your team because of his athleticism, his tracking ability, for the ball, his leadership through playmaking ability, and just the communication. I don't think there is a more communicative guy on defense. Just when you're out there at practice, the only voice you hear among all the other ones seemingly is Julian Blackmon, either talking trash or telling guys where to go, how to line up.
If there's one voice that can carry alongside Shaq Leonard's, it's Julian Blackmon. I mean, we're used to Shaq being incredibly vocal, and Julian is right on par with that.
So with Thomas's emergence, I think that just gives you the luxury of being able to move Blackmon into a role that he's comfortable with at strong safety. He's, again, a nonstop communicator. He loves to play physical. He's a really good tackler. We've talked about that in the past.
Underrated tackler.
Yeah, really comfortable playing in the box. I think this is a fish in water in terms of this switch for Blackmon going from free to strong safety. And I think there's, to your point, again, Larra, piggybacking off of that, I'm rooting big time for Julian Blackmon because personally he's just a great guy, and he's been through a lot, right? He tore the ACL in college, and then the Achilles injury a couple years ago. So
football is more fun when you have Julian Blackmon on the field.
Sure.
Practice, or he was in your locker room, no doubt. This guy is just nonstop energy, and he seems too, that he has gelled incredibly well with Ron Miles and Mike Mitchell and that whole group, and how he has been able to thrive and pick up and immerse himself in Gus's scheme.
Well, additionally, if you want to know what Mate's talking about with how good of a dude Julian Blackmon is, go listen to the podcast, Mate, you did with him. Person Behind the Pads.
He was fantastic.
Let's plug it. It was a really good interview.
So easy to talk to, too.
My favorite thing in that was he sings so much to his daughter that his daughter's like, Daddy, stop. That's great.
Yeah.
I love having a 3-year-old and already embarrassing them. It's great.
Yeah.
It's great. He hits that too.
The last training camp storyline outside of quarterback is just the schedule. And as we said, that's coming out later on tonight, so check that out later this week, Colts.com/camp for the full dates on when the Colts are going to be practicing. And the headliner of those practices are going to be, we do know the Colts are going to host the Bears for a couple of joint practices later in August. They're also going to fly to Philadelphia and have a joint practice with the Eagles. We don't know for sure on the date on that just yet. Maybe by the end of the day we will. But those sessions are probably going to give fans more of a glimpse of starter-on-starter action, schemes and X's and O's that are going to be used in the regular season as compared to those preseason games that are televised for the entire world to see. So with that, the question is, JJ and Larra, do you think the Colts will scale back playing time for the starters in those final 2 preseason games against the Bears and the Eagles because of those joint practices against Chicago.
Hold on,
and
I'm hijacking really quickly. We have I can't believe we've gone this long. We've buried the lead of this entire podcast. But we have an additional podcaster here,
nice.
a PAWD caster, because Millie Stankevitz is a guest star on this podcast.
Well, she hadn't said a word.
Well, I know, but she's providing emotional support and encouragement to one JJ Stankevitz.
It's Bring Your Dog to Work Day. So Millie is here. Millie has made an appearance on the podcast before, by the way.
Yeah.
When we were doing those at-home COVID podcasts, she barked on one.
Yeah,
and we got a comment.
that's right.
We got a comment on Apple Podcast, a review, a 5-star review that said, "Hoping for more Millie the dog on the podcast."
Here it is.
So
We're
here it is.
delivering
it.
You can't hear her because she's being quiet right now. But
well, does Millie think that Anthony Richardson's going to play in those final 2 preseason games? Millie, your thoughts?
she's wagging her tail, so I think that's yes.
That's an affirmative.
By the way, just real quick, because we have buried the lead. Not only is Millie here, but Tugboat Tucker is here.
Yeah.
Tugboat Tucker weighs how many pounds?
About 140-ish.
Yeah. So Millie weighs about 100, not 100. Oh, man. Millie weighs about 12.
Yeah.
12 pounds. Tugboat is more than 10 times the size of Millie. And Millie just looked at Tugboat and was like, I don't know what to do with you. I know you're a dog.
Epic
but
stare
really?
down. Yeah.
Are we the same species?
It was pretty funny.
It was great.
Tugboat walked in here. I thought he won the Kentucky Derby about a month ago.
Oh, I wish. I'd be a lot wealthier had he. That'd
Holy
be great.
Smokes.
Saddle him up. Let's go. All right. Now to the question. Now I'm going back to just our only real, I shouldn't say our only, but thinking about the past few years and how teams have operated with joint practices and preseason games, and then reflecting especially to last year, which was the first opportunity to have the modified preseason schedule of just the 3 games versus the 4. So I'm kind of looking specifically at last year as our best frame of reference. You got so much out of those 2 days of joint practices where it's all ones-on-ones that you didn't have as much need to see those guys face off in the preseason game. There was a bit of a gentleman's agreement among the head coaches of, all right, how much of your, what are you playing any of your starters? How long are you going to play the 2s? How much do you want to see of your 3s? I think because the joint practices are so beneficial and you get so much quality work out of that you will not see a ton of opportunity in preseason games 2 and 3 for significant time from the starters, if history should be any indication. And the one thing I'll say with that, we don't know what Shane Steichen's philosophy is on this. We're talking about a brand new coaching staff. So maybe it is different, but I do kind of think that if you're gauging those against one another, I think the greatest benefit does come from your 2 joint practices against the Chicago Bears, and then you're going to get anything you need to clarify or any greater assessment is going to come from the game.
The devil's advocate of that, though, is that last year the Colts didn't have a rookie quarterback that was coming off only 13 games.
Well, the question to me here, there are 2 separate questions. I think when we talk about the starters, you're talking about your core guys: DeForest Buckner, Quentin Nelson, Jonathan Taylor, Zaire Franklin, that group of guys.
Michael Pittman.
It's a much bigger group than that, but I don't think you're going to see a lot of those guys. The question about Anthony Richardson, I think, is different because for a quarterback, he's going to see coverages in practice from what Matt Eberflus and Alan Williams are doing in Chicago with their 4-3 to then what Sean Desai is doing in Philadelphia with the 3-4 Vic Fangio scheme. It can be 2 different kinds of coverages he's going to see. And the coverages that they deploy in those joint practices are not going to be what they deploy in the game because you don't want to show anything.
You're very vanilla. You show nothing in the game. It is the absolute most watered-down version of your playbook that you can get in those situations, yes.
But the benefit for Anthony Richardson in those games will be legitimately feeling the pass rush.
Yeah, and because just going out there too and having the helmet on and just
operations.
Operationally, logistical, relay the play to the huddle, go to the line of scrimmage.
I'm also
survey things.
You weigh with that though the risk of injury too. I mean, that's the other part of it too. I mean, how much? Yeah. How do you gauge that in there too? If you have a guy playing in the second quarter of the second preseason game,
right,
and he gets wrapped up on a pass rush and twists an ankle, and you also have to think long term. You have got to think long term about Anthony Richardson and waging the kind of cost benefit of it all right there. So
what is this, econ class? What are we doing
You know
here?
what? I'm going to just drop some knowledge
Diminishing
on you right now.
returns?
Exactly.
Is that next?
Yeah. I don't know. JJ drops DVOA on here, so I'm just coming with
That's not an econ thing.
I still haven't figured out what it is.
I do think it's a healthy debate, though.
It is a healthy debate, very much so.
I don't think anybody's wrong. I mean, we've also heard this entire time all off season that it's reps, it's reps, it's reps, it's time on task, whether that's practice or joint practice or preseason. None of it is bad in the sense that Anthony Richardson is one of the most inexperienced college quarterbacks to go in the top 5.
And here's what I'm going to say. I don't think that there is a set plan right now, and that's not necessarily coming from anything that I've heard or any type of insider knowledge. I just think that you are going to have to go into camp with such a clean slate that you are going to be evaluating and constantly evaluating what the plan is for both Anthony Richardson and Gardner Minshew going in that situation. I mean, depending on how good he looks, where you identify his weaknesses to be, how much growth he shows from the time he left this building in middle of June to the time he shows up in Grant Park in late July.
So 2022, Jalen Hurts threw 6 passes in the preseason. That they all came in the first preseason game of the year. In 2021, he played in the first preseason game, and we are totally doing this on the fly. So I'm just ripping through NFL GSIS, finding Eagles stats. Jalen Hurts did not play in the second preseason game in 2021 for the Eagles, and in the third preseason game he also did not play. And that was Jalen Hurts in 2021 when he had started 4 games in the NFL and was going to be the Eagles starting quarterback that year.
Yeah.
So, but that was Nick Sirianni's decision. That wasn't Shane Steichen's decision.
I'm sure Shane carried a lot of weight though in
right,
that
absolutely,
decision.
absolutely. I mean, it's not a unilateral thing. You have those discussions, but that is just maybe a starting point here of even Jalen Hurts, who needed experience, that, it's not the same. It's definitely not apples to apples, but it's in the same ballpark.
Yeah, that's going to be all hashed out here in about a month.
Does this ballpark serve
Dippin' Dots? Yes, it does. This ballpark serves lots of Dippin' Dots.
Is that on the concourse area up there? All right, that's
Loge level.
Yeah, that's a so certainly that is a huge storyline going into training camp, that with the playing time and certainly what's going on with Julian Blackmon and the cornerback depth. Those are some non-quarterback well, I guess we did talk about Anthony Richardson. So we had quarterback, non-quarterback.
You can't avoid it.
Storylines going into camp. All right, let's close out the show here. Do you see it? That's the name of this segment here. As we talk about the Colts and the rest of the NFL here in the summertime, it's sort of the doldrums. It's the quietest part, if you will, of the NFL calendar, June into July. But we often debate if things are going to happen heading into the upcoming season. So let's break out some 2023 predictions on Do You See It? Larra, the first Do You See It is, let's go back to Anthony Richardson. He's going to start at least 15 games next season, so start the majority of the season, and he's going to throw for 3,000 yards in his rookie season. Do you see that?
I don't know that I do. And that mainly comes from the fact that I think you're going to see a lot of the run game. And I don't know if you're going to see that much. The 15 games I can get on board with. I'm just curious if you're going to see a little bit more of a run-pass balance. That's just, I don't know. That's kind of where I'm in on that.
There have only been 24 rookie quarterbacks to throw for over 3,000 yards in NFL history. But Daniel Jones was one of them who came in and it was a different kind of offense, but he kind of came in as a raw passer, decent runner. The list of this guy, it's a wild list. You got Brandon Weeden on here, but also
Brandon Weeden. Wow.
Dak Prescott, Baker May. I mean, like,
do you not feel like you're going to utilize a lot of the run game, and then you're also going to have like quite a bit of like some designed runs, and then he's going to make plays with his legs too.
I think you're probably going to see more along the lines of 2,500 yards.
Yeah,
but I think more interestingly is how many rushing yards does he get? Does he get over 700? That's a pretty high number for a quarterback. But I absolutely think you can lean into that. The question then becomes, though, if the Colts are playing catch-up in these games,
you're going to be forced to pass.
You're going to be forced to throw it. And that's kind of where Daniel Jones was in 2019, where the Giants were not very good. They're playing catch-up a lot.
Brandon Weeden was also like a 29-year-old rookie.
Right. I mean,
And that was before the COVID year.
That's just like a, hey, remember that guy, Brandon Whedon?
Sorry, I just stuck on that. I love that you ripped that out of there, though. That's a great frame of reference, though.
This is how my brain works, by the way. I have a list that has Andrew Luck, Justin Herbert, Cam Newton, Peyton Manning, Kyler Murray on it, and the first name I go to is Brandon Whedon. That's how my brain. Remember that guy?
Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
Played baseball.
That's
He's
right.
a baseball player.
Yep.
I do. I'm more optimistic though. I do.
Well, I'm not pessimistic.
Yeah, I know.
It's not that I'm saying he won't start that many games or won't have success as a quarterback. That's my thing is just the passing yards.
Sure.
So
I think if you look at the last two quarterbacks under Shane Steichen, or the quarterbacks that Shane Steichen has worked with, Jalen Hurts and certainly Herbert. In Hurts' first full year as a starter, JJ referenced that 21 season, 15 games, 61% completion percentage, over 3,100 yards. If you go back to Herbert in year number one, remember Herbert wasn't supposed to be the guy. That was Tyrod Taylor. So he stepped up.
That was a wild situation.
Yeah, it seems like forever ago, too.
Punctured lung.
15 starts, 4,300 yards his first year. So I think it can be done under Shane Steichen.
Beautiful head of hair on that man, by the way.
Yes, he does have some locks.
Flowing locks.
So the question, I think I'm more interested in the rushing yards.
I thought you were more interested in his hair.
It's great hair. How many quarterbacks, do you guys think, have rushed for over 600 yards in their rookie seasons? How many in NFL history?
5.
Yeah, I'll take the under.
4.
Ooh, okay.
Robert Griffin, 815. Cam Newton, 706. Lamar Jackson, 695. And by the way, 7 starts.
Also, speaking of
Josh Allen.
Speaking of Robert Griffin, the
great
third.
Track guy.
Great track guy. I spent some time with him in Austin, Texas. He has agreed to come on the podcast. So
yes!
we will have him on the pod.
Let's go.
In just a few weeks. We are going to get it scheduled, but a little teaser for you. He has a lot of thoughts on Shane Steichen and Anthony Richardson and Gardner Minshew, so he will bring it all.
That is a great get.
Yeah, thanks.
Given what great get regardless, but when we're talking Anthony Richardson, getting Robert Griffin III on here, that's a great get.
Yeah.
Good job, Larra.
Well, thank you. Every once in a while I pull my weight around here.
But so only 4 guys have rushed for over 600 yards. I think if Richardson starts 15 games, he's going to be the 5th.
Yeah.
I think he will get there. Maybe even if not, maybe there are special packages where you get him out there and maybe he starts 10 games, but he plays in all 17. And in those 7 games that he doesn't start, he gets 4 or 5 carries in the game.
One quick thing on Anthony Richardson as well. There was a lot of conversation about nicknames and what he likes to be called and different things. I got a clarification directly from him. Short, he likes Ant for short, short for Anthony, and he is good with AR. Just AR stands alone, good, and Ant in terms of if you're looking for little ways to nickname or squeeze it in. Both of those are signed off on by Anthony Richardson.
Cool, I like it.
Yeah.
All right, do you see it in 2021? Shane Steichen in Philadelphia, Dallas Goedert, the tight end. He played nearly 70% of the snaps. He did miss 5 games with a shoulder injury last season, so he was not able to meet that playing time percentage in 2022. But Jelani Woods will be the tight end version of Goddard in Indianapolis next season. JJ, do you see it?
Probably not that quickly. Dallas Goedert didn't really start to take off as one of the top tight ends in the NFL until maybe 2 years ago. I mean, he's been good. Don't get me wrong. Like, his second year was good. He had 58 catches for 607 yards, 5 touchdowns. I kind of think, tight end development, year 2 is still you're making strides, but you're not making strides to be Dallas Goedert in 2021 when he was probably a top 5 tight end in the league. That's a high bar for a second-year tight end to clear. So I probably don't see it. I think Jelani takes a step this year, but I don't think he takes...
He goes up to 70%?
To do that in year 2 is really, really hard. And that's not saying he can't do it, but it's really hard.
I could see it. I definitely think he's going to be valuable. However, in terms of the tight end group, the guy I was most impressed with over this OTA and minicamp period was Kylen Granson. Right now, to me, he's your most valuable tight end from what we saw, just specifically from what we saw in that narrow, that small sample size at that period of time. Jelani was battling with he had a pulled hamstring, so he was sidelined for a bit. We obviously Mo Alley Cox. I'm so interested in where Drew Ogletree is coming back from the torn ACL. This will be significant for him. But I just thought Kylan, regardless of which quarterback was out there, he was the most consistent weapon on the field that I saw.
So going back to our discussion about Richardson and, are the Colts going to run the ball a lot or are they going to be playing catch-up a lot? If you're going to run the ball a lot, you could have Granson out there, but you're going to need that true inline Y tight end, which would be Jelani or Mo Alley Cox.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to be playing catch-up, you're probably going to be throwing it a lot to Kylan Granson or Drew Ogletree. But, to be a run-heavy offense, you're probably going to need that inline tight end who can block. And again, those two guys would be Mo Alley Cox or Jelani Woods.
That's where I'm at. Yeah.
I think Mo Alley's probably ahead just because he's got more experience in the league.
Absolutely.
When it comes to run blocking. But if Jelani can grow as a run blocker, he could have a pretty big role in this offense.
And you have to remind yourself, like 3 years, well, I guess more than that, but 5 years ago, this guy was playing quarterback.
At Oklahoma State.
So
right.
he has a huge, ceiling and a huge opportunity. Like he's still learning and grasping the position. And then you think about last year as a rookie, he has a change at his position coach, like all of the different things. I mean, among all of the other, kind of change that they endured. So I think that he has an opportunity to prove a lot.
I'm with you, JJ. I mean, he's a willing blocker. If he can really improve in the running game from his tight end position, he's the only tight end I think the Colts have that has the athleticism to really stretch the field the way that Dallas Goedert can and the way that the Colts want to be able to run their offense with their tight end. So if he can improve in the running game and have there be no excuse to take him off the field, I think he's got the ability to stay on the field and dominate matchups. How are you going to cover him? A safety, a linebacker, a nickel corner? The dude's what, 6'8", 250?
35-inch arms.
Yeah. I think he and Alec Pierce are your two biggest big play weapons going into the season. We'll see where Josh Downs is in that regard. We'll see where Isaiah McKenzie is with that. But I think as of right now, it's 14 and 81, or 80, I should say. Those two guys, I think, are huge inside the red zone. If you can leave, I should say, Jelani Woods on the field in the running game, I don't know. I think he might be able to sniff 70% of playing time.
I would love to see it.
All right, speaking of playing time, the Colts are very high on Adetomiwa Adebawore. They drafted him in the third round at the Combine. Fourth round, out of Northwestern. We do know he's over 280, ran a sub 4.5 at 4.49 in the 40-yard dash. He's even heavier than some of the defensive ends the Colts have, and he ran a faster time than 16 wide receivers at the Combine.
It's the best one.
Unbelievable.
Every time you bring him up to Bill Brooks, it just breaks Bill Brooks' mind because Bill ran a 4.5 at the Combine, which was fast in the 80s. And Adetomiwa Adebawore ran a faster 40-yard dash than Bill Brooks at like 100 pounds heavier. It's incredible.
Insanity.
And Northwestern, 24.5 tackles for loss, 12.5 sacks. He's likely going to start the season as the backup in the defensive tackle rotation, probably starting out as the backup to DeForest Buckner. But the Colts are very high that he can add some pop in the pass rush game with his quickness off the ball. So the question is, Adebawore is going to see at least 40% of the snaps in 2023, either at nose tackle or the 3-tech. Do you see that, Larra?
I don't know, because that means you're taking DeForest or Grover off. I mean, that's with those guys. You would kind of like to see it because you would like to have a really solid rotation in there and be able to, with all the things that DeForest has battled through injury-wise the last few seasons, you'd like to preserve him a little bit and have it to where he's not forced to do so much. So I think if you're thinking about between those two, the opportunity he has, I'd like to see it. I think you could certainly see that being a probability in the season.
I think the guy to consider here is Taven Bryan, veteran who the Colts signed in free agency. He's that kind of veteran backup at those spots. So I probably don't see it with Adebawore right now, but I think if he's at 25% of the snaps and those are really good, then he'll continue to earn them.
Yeah.
But, I mean, Larry, you're right about Buck. I think you might want to get his snap percentage down just a little bit.
He's had to do so much the last 3 years.
And he hasn't played fewer than 75% of the snaps in the games he's played since he got to Indianapolis. And in his career, he's never played fewer than 75% of the defensive snaps in the games he's played. That is a lot for a guy who's going into his 8th season in the NFL. And Buck keeps his body in unbelievable shape.
And he's still seeing high degree of double teams, too.
And he's getting double teamed. He's fighting through stuff. I mean, this dude...
at one point last year, he was playing with essentially one arm.
He was playing with a bionic arm, and he's still at 8 sacks.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that Buckner is one of the toughest guys in the NFL, one of the most in-shape guys in the NFL. But could he potentially be a little more effective on a down-to-down basis if he's at 73% of the snaps, 72%? That's not that big of a drop-off. He's still going to be on the field a lot. But... hey, let's just kind of be intentional about keeping him as fresh as he can. He's 29 years old. He's played a lot of snaps in the NFL. I don't doubt that he could play, 900 snaps in a season and be really good. But would it overall be better for the Colts defensive line if he's at 700?
Right.
And the other 200 then get dispersed to Adebawore and Taven Bryan.
And don't forget about Grover Stewart, too, because he played roughly about 70% of the snaps last year.
Which for a nose tackle is unbelievable.
Very high. Yeah, that's why, the Colts couldn't take him off the field because he was a really good interior pass rusher on 3rd and long and obvious passing situations. So then you had, going back to last year, Eric Johnson, he really didn't see the field a ton last year. Byron Cowart, who's no longer on the team, he played about 20% of the snaps as a rotational defensive lineman last year. So I do see Adebawore having a specific role, maybe on 3rd down, red zone. But, 40% is going to be a little bit generous, I think, right out of the gate, considering the all-pro caliber players in front of him that are still in their prime. I agree with you. Maybe DeForest Buckner doesn't need to play 80% to preserve him, keep him fresh. Maybe he's a little bit more efficient that way. But you still want Buckner, you still want Stewart on the field more often than not because of how good they are. All right, that's Do You See It? I think we got to close out here with some randomness. Let's go to the random thought of the week.
Random thought of the week.
And why is the carpet all wet, Todd?
I don't know, Margot.
You guys going out of town? You know if it's cold there? Do these vans get good gas mileage?
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
Random thought of the week. It's summertime here. We're kind of in the dog days of summer. We're creeping up on July. Simple this week. Larra and JJ, what was the best or worst summer job that you guys ever had?
The only summer job I ever had was umpiring Little League.
Oh, I
got
that.
Off so easy. So easy.
You can make some good dough doing that, can't you?
Yeah. I earned anywhere from $25 to $50 a game. I would do like double headers, make like $100 on a Saturday, which as a 16-year-old was like making $1 billion.
Hell yeah.
That was the best job. I only threw out one parent. I only ever do eject one parent.
Story.
And let me tell you.
We need the story.
As a 16-year-old ejecting a grown man from a park.
This is incredible.
So that takes some stones, man.
So his kid ran out of the baseline to avoid a tag. The shortstop had the ball, and he ran onto the infield to avoid
clearly out of the base pass.
Clearly out of the base pass. So I called him out. And the dad's just like, what's he supposed to do? I'm like, get tagged out? I mean, there's nothing you can do as a runner.
Mm-hmm.
The guy's got the ball. You're going to get tagged out.
Right.
So this dad's, he's grunting and moaning and whatever. So the inning goes, finish up the inning. I go to get a drink of water behind the backstop, and he walks up to me and he goes, I really don't think you know what you're talking about. Like, you need to really read up on the rules, and, you're really not good at this. And I turned around.
Wait a minute. How old are the kids playing in the game?
These are probably 13-year-olds.
All right.
So I turned and I walked away and I went up to the coach of the team and I go, I'm not restarting the game until he leaves.
Wow.
And I looked at him and I said, you got to go. Like to the parent, said, you got to go. And he throws his hands up and goes, what did I do? And I was like, you got to go. You can't talk to me like that.
Wow.
You got to go. So I then stood there and, I'm holding the ball. And I'm standing over home plate in all my umpiring gear with my hands on my hips as I watch this guy womble out of the park. And as soon as he puts 2 feet in the street and he's off park property, I go, play ball! Felt great.
Awesome.
One of the best feelings of my youth was ejecting this parent from the game.
Did you have any
That's
altercations in the
fantastic.
parking lot afterwards?
No, he left. I mean, I'm sure he came back to pick up his kid.
Right.
But no, I didn't see him after.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. I'm trying to think. And none were really bad, but I'll say this is kind of funny. So I was pretty young. I don't know. I was maybe like 12 or so, and I would nanny in the summer for some kids, and because their mom would run, she did like tennis camps, and so while the mom was running her tennis camps, I would watch the kids at the house. And the only reason I say it was the worst is because I could take care of the kids and all of that, but I didn't know what I was doing in terms of like feeding them and different things. And like one day the kids, like I was like, I don't know, like here's some granola bars and whatever, and they were like, they wanted a grilled cheese one day. I didn't know how to make grilled cheese.
Oh, no. Oh, come on.
So I just took out bread.
She was 12.
And I put cheese. Got some like Kraft singles, and I was like, how do I heat this up? So I put it in the microwave.
Let's go.
And then just gave it to the kids. I'm sure it was awful.
Well, they were like, what am I supposed to do?
So
with
That
this?
cheese was probably 500 degrees.
Oh, my God. So I'm sure it was the worst for them. So, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so it wasn't the worst for me, but like I was just trying to like make do here. Yeah, and so that was like my first summer job.
Yeah.
But yeah, what about you?
The worst summer job I ever had, well, it was a good job, but it was just hard because of what it entailed. So I got a job. I loved it. My first job in radio was actually not in radio, but it was in radio. My job was to go to Clear Channel. It was Clear Channel at the time, right? Q95, X103, Bob and Tom show. So basically, they were running a new automated system for the summer, and my job was to make sure that the automation system didn't catch on fire or blow up. They just needed a warm.
Was that a common problem that they ran into?
I don't know, but they were trying to test it out. So they were like, we just need somebody to come in overnights on Fridays and Saturdays from like 11 in the morning until 6 a.m. or 11 p.m. to 6 a.m.
The third shift, yeah.
So my job was basically to come in overnight and just make sure nothing caught on fire. They needed a warm body there at the facility. I was like 17 years old, minimum wage as minimum wage can be, and it was hard because I like to sleep. I'd get to be like 2:30, 3 in the morning. I've already watched like 5 reruns of Cheers on Nick at Night. And I'm like dozing off, but I can't fall asleep because if the building blows up or the automation system, doesn't fire the way it's supposed to, it's on me. So it was very, very hard. So there are a lot of like Saturday morning and Sunday mornings. I'd come home and I'd get home by like 6:45 and I'd go to sleep until like 3 p.m. But I had the entire radio station, the whole complex, the entire building to myself.
Okay, what was the protocol if the thing caught on fire?
I'm sure I just had to call somebody, phone the program director or the GM.
It's like they didn't have like a bucket of water next to it or like a fire extinguisher.
Like
it was more about the automation system. Like if it went haywire, it was supposed to like click 5 buttons or something and make sure it went back on track. But it never happened.
Wait 10 seconds.
Blow on the cartridge. Knock it back in.
It never
like
happened.
Nintendo.
It never happened. So I got paid the entire summer to just sit and watch TV, which was great, but I was also just tired as hell on the weekends. But yeah, that was my first
That's great.
job in radio, was just sitting there.
And you probably wouldn't be where you are today if you hadn't had that experience, right?
I don't know about that.
Come on. That was your entry.
I would go to the Q95 studio and just rip songs off the hardware and then put them on a thumb drive.
Amazing.
Nice.
Yeah, so I had like the entire Bob Seger
You're like,
catalog.
it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. Jimmy made us tell me
what's
we're all
up?
good.
Yeah.
Dog says we're all good.
Dog gave me the password so I could sneak into the hard drive for sure. All right, we're going to be off next week, but we are going to have some content. We're going to have a 4th of July podcast coming up next Tuesday, which is the 4th, but we're going to tape that ahead of time. So it's not like we're going to be live, local, and late breaking, but we will have some content for you next week as the entire building, the entire office, the Colts complex is going to be shut down. They're very gracious, giving the entire organization a week off for the 4th of July. So what do you guys have planned? What are you doing on your JJ? I know about you. You're flying the country here. You're going to the European continent.
I am. I'm going to Scotland on Sunday for a thrice-delayed wedding celebration.
Fun.
Where one of my best friends got married to a Scottish woman.
Mm-hmm.
Was supposed to be in 2020. That got canceled. Long story short, it's in 2023. They have a 9-month-old daughter, and we'll be celebrating their wedding.
Good for them.
Cool.
At a castle in Scotland.
That's awesome.
Will there be bagpipes?
No. The Scottish woman who my friend married hates bagpipes. as far as I understand it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe kilts, though. I'm not wearing a kilt, but there will probably be kilts.
Fantastic.
But then that's on 4th of July, and then Betsy and I's anniversary is on July 7th. So we're already in Europe. So we're gonna go to Bordeaux for a couple of days in France. So I'm gonna come back, and my body's gonna be like 80% whiskey and wine.
That is an ideal
My
ratio.
goal on this entire trip is to not drink one beer.
Oh.
No beer.
Ooh.
Okay.
Oh, man.
Fantastic.
I don't know if it's going to work.
I don't know if I could do that.
I'm going to try.
I might Venmo you some money to pack some wine back in that suitcase.
Larra, I'll bring you back wine. We have plenty of those like wine bottle pack.
I'll trade you some Spotted Cow. Because I'm headed to Wisconsin.
Okay, you got a deal.
So,
I'll trade you a bottle of wine for some Spotted Cow. Great.
You're doing the cabin life.
We are doing the cabin life. Yeah, a couple days up on the lake with some great friends of ours, and it's a place my husband has been going for probably 20 years.
Awesome. Yeah.
And I finally get to accompany the crew along for the journey, and they're bringing the kids this time. We have a couple of families that we're going along with, 11 people in total, 3 cabins. It's going to be great.
That's great.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Where in Wisconsin?
Not sure yet.
Is that like Northwoods?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Awesome. Yeah, not sure yet. We're pretty wide open, so we'll have to.
Yeah, because you just got back from your Florida trip,
we just
so you
got
guys are
back
getting your
from
bearings.
Florida. Yeah, so we'll see what we can swing with a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old and not piss them off. That's pretty much we wake up.
That's the entire goal.
Yeah, we'll see what kind of mood they're in on a daily basis.
You can go meet Casey Valier at Holiday World.
Yeah, right.
Well,
Yeah.
I don't know about that. That's a hike. Our Person Behind the Pads podcast is back this week. Jonathan Taylor is going to join JJ. You had that conversation a little bit earlier in the offseason regarding growing up in New Jersey, being the stud that he was, how he landed in Wisconsin, and his love for the stars and astronomy, JJ. This guy is supernatural, looking up into the sky and having the love for maybe some extra being somewhere out there.
I mean, the way that he framed the future of space travel, I was like, I've never thought about it like that. That's great.
Yeah.
Also, it didn't make the podcast because
is he the next investor in SpaceX? Like,
yeah, I mean, he
is
might
he gonna
be.
go up on a shuttle?
The thing I wish that made it into the podcast, because we finished talking, and then afterwards, we were just kind of chatting, and we started talking about like his favorite restaurants here, and he has a very specific formula for steakhouses. He's like, I got to go 3 times. If I go 3 times and I like it all 3 times, then it's on my favorites list.
Yeah.
I love this.
It was great,
top 5.
and like he had like a very like he's thought this through, and I'm like, that's great.
Yeah.
Like
no shock that Jonathan Taylor is cerebral about everything in his life.
Calculated.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm just a dope. I'm like, I really liked eating at Prime. I'm just gonna keep going back there.
Hell yeah. The Colts Reunion podcast is back again. Bill Brooks and I, last week we had the unveiling of our conversation with Dallas Clark, the former Colts tight end. This week, Adam Vinatieri discusses his illustrious career, some big-time kicks in a Colts uniform, and what the Hall of Fame would mean to him in a couple years. You know that's coming. The question is whether or not that's a first ballot for Adam Vinatieri. Then the last word comes back on Friday, our weekly off-season radio show. Myself and the Gorman Man will preview the Colts defensive line situation going into training camp. We'll talk more about Adebawore, DeForest Buckner, Grover Stewart, so on and so forth. Guys, well done as always. As we said, we'll have a 4th of July podcast next week, but enjoy your vacations, and we will do it again live in person in mid-July, and then as soon as you know it, we're going to be at training camp in late July up at Graham Park in Westfield. Colts.com/camp for the complete training camp schedule coming out later on tonight. For JJ, Larra, I'm Matt Taylor. Thanks for listening to the official Colts podcast brought to you by WynnBet. As always, be sure to like and subscribe, and have a great rest of your week. And we'll talk to you next week here on the Colts Audio Network.